right, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Let's Stay Together talk show. I'm your host, Reverend Rick McCain, along with my baby, my girl, my boo, author Brenda McCain. All other titles I'm not going to announce today. We've got a special panel show that we're going to talk about, and it's a very sensitive, explosive, powerful conversations we're going to have here. But I'm going to start it off just a little bit, and I'm going to let my baby talk. Where the Bible, paraphrasing what Hosea 4 and 6 says, it says, the people perish because of the lack of knowledge. This show that we're talking about, My Body, My Choice, is all about receiving knowledge. It's not about what you agree or disagree, because we need to understand that we can receive knowledge about what we should not do as well as knowledge of what we shouldn't do. But if we don't receive the knowledge, it causes an issue for us to be able to do what is right according to the word of the Lord. So this is an important subject. I feel a little um, out of it a little because I'm really not going to be able to say much because this is my body, my choice, and I'm dependent on the women here to be able to give us a lot of information. Our guests are coming in. Baby, how you doing? And I'm gonna let you say a few things before we start getting into our topic.
I'm doing good. This is a great topic because we are in a presidential election year, and I want women to stay woke of all of their options to get out and vote because that would help determine if you are in the childbearing years to decide whether what state you want to live in and who you want in the office to control your body, which sounds crazy, but I am doing good.
Yeah, we've had about two people that we were supposed to have today. Unfortunately, will not be able to make it. I think we've got one more individual supposed to come on, and we may have another guest coming in soon. But I do want to let this other lady come in because she's very knowledgeable about the subject as well. So I want to bring in. I want to say hello to Vanessa and Glenda. How are you doing? You know,
Hello, everyone.
can you hear
Hello,
us?
everyone.
Is
How
that
are you?
Vanessa? You're on mute. Okay. I read sign language. So everybody, we're trying to get that together. Again, this show is My Body, My Choice. It's going to be a very powerful show where we're going to be talking about some things about the your body autonomy. We're going to dabble on the Roe versus Wade, information about state versus state, and it's about learning the knowledge because there's so many places out there that are providing women with the wrong information or the misinformation or leading them astray with about their reproductive rights, and we need to make sure that that is something that people are aware of, and the show. I mean, when we started this show off, it was always going to be about taboo topics that topics that are taboo to the church that the church doesn't necessarily talk about, but as Christians, we go through. I can remember we talked about divorce, and people were mad at us. I'm like, why are you talking about that? I'm like, because
It
if you looked at your
happens.
if you looked at your statistics, Christians were being divorced at a rate of 50%. So yes, we're going to talk about uh, divorce, and so we're talking about things that necessarily don't happen inside the church, or people don't talk about it, afraid to talk about. We will talk about it. So I'm glad we have our other guests coming in here. I'm going to, babe, you got anything you want to say? Because I'm going to let the young ladies introduce themselves, going from Glenda, Vanessa, and then I'm saying this right. Sharice? Am I saying that? Thank you.
Welcome, Cherise. We did the other welcome to the other ladies. Welcome, Cherise. Okay.
Thank you.
So, Glenda, just introduce yourself for us real quick. It doesn't have to be anything special. Just tell us who you are. Then I'll go to Miss Vanessa Mason and then Sharice Scott.
Hi, my name is Glenda Banks. I'm 67. Um, 2 adult children, 5 grandchildren, um, and that's about it.
Miss Mason.
Hi, I'm Vanessa McCain Mason. I'm 67 years old with 2 adult kids, no grandchildren, and I'm going to retire from 30 years of service at the Juvenile Detention Center on January 31st.
Congratulations.
She doesn't seem excited about that at all.
Oh no, I'm really excited.
That was being
I'm
facetious.
very excited. I
That
am
was, yeah,
happy.
I was being facetious with that.
I know.
And Miss Scott, tell us some things about you.
Yes, sir. Sharice Scott, CEO and founder of Sister Reach in Memphis, Tennessee, and also in Illinois, based in Chicago. And I am so glad to be here. I run reproductive and sexual justice organizations in both states, and I'm glad to be on the call.
Right. And so this is what we're going to talk about. And again, people, the show, this is a panel discussion. So we're going to be talking about this through the whole 2 hours. I'm going to try to give everybody about a 30-minute break in between so they can, do whatever you have to do, powder their nose, go to the bathroom, something like that. 2 hours is a long time. We're going to try to get through that and maybe have a song or something like that. But Sharice, I want to start with you because I got a chance to talk with you and I got a chance to see the information. And I mean, you're an awesome sister that's really getting involved in this. Do me a favor and do a simplification of Roe versus Wade and how that has now affected reproduction rights.
Sure. The United States Supreme Court delivered a decision in Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health, eliminating access to safe legal abortions for millions of people in the United States last year. The 6-3 ruling overturned the 50 years of precedent set by Roe v. Wade and strengthened in Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Approximately half of the states in the United States have near total bans or prohibitions that limit access to abortion care. And in the majority opinion, Justice Alito wrote that Constitution does not include the right to abortion care. This decision not only thwarted constitutional due process guaranteed by the 14th Amendment and the right to privacy, but also affirmed with advocates like myself and my colleagues across the country feared to further attempts to undermine the legal basis for unenumerated rights regarding the sexuality, sexual behavior, and reproductive rights, health, and justice of every American. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and so when that changed, I'm gonna jump to some people. When that changed, Vanessa, when you heard about that change where Roe versus Wade came up and it limited the woman's right to choose, how did that feel to you as a woman?
It made me feel like we were going back to the 1960s and 50s where women had no rights. They had no right to say, no, I do not want to have this child. I was raped. Why should I have to carry this child? This giving the women the impression that we are now being reclassified back to the second citizen, not an equal person, but a second person, meaning that men are superior to us and we are lower because they're making this decision to control our body, how we want to handle our body, what we can and cannot do to our bodies, and that these are our bodies. So it's just pushing us back in time.
Yeah, Glenda.
I felt like people that didn't experience what a woman experienced were trying to make decisions about how we make choices about our bodies. As a mother of a daughter who is of childbearing age, if that was a decision that she made with her and her partner, no one else should make a decision about that, and she should be the only one that can decide that. It lent itself to the government telling a woman what she can do, what she can't do. If a man can do that, tell a woman when she can carry a child or not carry a child or make choices about a body, where will it go from there? How much further will they go? I think about the long-term ramifications where, if a woman wants to not carry a child, that should be no one's choice but her own, and her physician or her healthcare provider. It should not be even a decision with the person that she laid. She's the person that has to carry it. So it just made me feel like we're going back to the Stone Age where women were second-class citizens.
Ms. Scott, me and you both are, ministers. And so we know how, in some cases, the church views this information. Let's talk a little bit about that because it's troubling. Yes.
I had an opinion too.
Okay, I'm sorry. Baby, I'm sorry. You have an opinion too? I mean, you could have just jumped in and said something. I'm sorry. What you got?
I see Sharice.
See, that's why I'm saying
She new to
I'm gonna
us,
be.
so
I'm
I have
gonna
to be nice.
Yeah,
I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it.
Okay.
We 30 years crazy.
Yeah, so
That's all right. I love it. I
30
love it so
years
much.
And Glenda got a glimpse of us, so. But I agree.
And I'm accustomed to them.
Oh yeah, Vanessa, you in it. So,
Yeah.
but I know that as a woman, like all these beautiful women out here, to me, this is the worst violation without even being raped, because someone took advantage of our body being raped. The government is raping us all over again with their systematic powers of controlling our body. And I hate that because even though most of us are out of the childbearing age and everything, I still, if something happened now, I would want the right to choose if I want to abort. That would be between me and God, me and my husband, and of course, and everything. But ultimately, like Linda said, that's between me, God, and my physician and everything. Because for the government, going back to what Vanessa was saying, they didn't took us back. This happened in 73, I believe. They didn't took us way back all these years as though, okay, you guys are second-class citizens. We don't deem you guys anything to make your own decision about your own body.
Yeah.
And that's just, I don't know, it hurt to hear that happened, that it was overturned, and we stuck with this. We are really stuck with this. So we don't fight for it. We're gonna be, that's just the first thing. And if that person get in office, it's gonna be a whole lot of things.
Yeah, I will say this. I want to go to the church thing, but my sister here, Miss Scott, has some information that I wanted to share because this the rest of the ladies here are bad sisters. You all know me, but this is a bad sister that's been doing some great things with Sister Reach. Talk a little bit about that and share the experience of what caused you to develop this core program to help women because of the miseducation that they have received throughout.
Sure. Well, I think I want to first say the way that I felt when, I think, because I do this type of work, because I'm on the front lines advocating for Black women and girls, our families to be autonomous, to be self-determined, and to make decisions for ourselves. For me, it felt like we were going back to slavery when Black women in particular have had no say in who we are, who we can love, who we can marry, how we can raise our kids, if we need to be able to have children, if we don't want to be able to have children. I think for me, not only has this entire situation been traumatic, and though advocates like myself knew that this was coming, right? And we're trying to do everything that we could, especially Black women in particular, trying to do everything that we could, including showing up at the polls at 94% the last election, and we do it repeatedly, always fighting, not just for ourselves, but for our families, for our partners, for our sons, for our daughters. Trying to, preserve as much of a legacy of freedom for ourselves as possible. I think that, it only further unveiled for me, what this thing is really about. Because one of the things that we say in my work is that the removal of Roe v. Wade was really only a Trojan horse. It's really not about abortion care. It's really not about white supremacists loving Black babies or white, or any children. It's really about trying to preserve a labor force and trying to preserve, white folks' power in this country, right? The demographers say that by 2032, people of color are going to be the majority of this country. We'll be the majority voting bloc. That's scary to folks who feel like they are losing power, right? That's scary to people who, I don't know what all I can say on this program, but James Baldwin said, white America must ask themselves why they need a nigga, right? So I think it's so important that we need to really delve into the racial components of this, the power components of this, and as somebody who started this organization in Memphis first, but I started my work in Chicago 20 years ago, was because I needed my own abortion. And I thought that I was going to an abortion clinic, but it was not a clinic. It ended up being what they call a pregnancy counseling center, which is a place that lures folks in under the disguise of being an abortion clinic. But once you get there, everything is anything but, right? Showed all types of videos trying to scare me, giving me misinformation, propaganda, but I did not know. I wasn't doing the work then. I didn't know enough about my body then. I didn't know, where I was. But when though they were able to change my mind and I did have my child, I think it's really interesting and important. I'm writing my memoir right now because this year in March will be 20 years of me doing this work. I want to kind of, talk about what has happened over these 20 years and talk about, in particular, the role of white evangelicalism, white nationalist, Christian extremism, and the ways that white supremacy has played such a role in lying to people, right? And in trying to take away our ability to do something that, if we just going to talk about this in a ministerial way, self-determination is a gift from God, right? So being able to make decisions that are not forced or coerced is a gift, right? From the divine. So the fact that somebody would lie to me, would lure me into their place of business and lie to me about the fact that if I had an abortion, I would never be able to have any more children. Of course, I wanted to be a mother, but I didn't want to raise my child by myself. Right? We all have, when we find ourselves pregnant for whatever reason, right? And it's not in any way to put any shame or blame. I am a mother. I am a proud mother. I'm a proud Black mother, proud Black single mother who has done this thing for almost 22 years, practically alone. I'm proud of my child. I worked very hard to get him where he is without any of their help, without any of their support, because nobody was there. Not even 12 months after I had him and I lost my job and I needed to figure out how I was going to keep the lights on and food on the table. None of those folks were there, right? But those folks say that they are stepping into this kind of moral high ground position as if they have the right to do something that God doesn't even do, which is impose God's self on us, right? So you want to tell me that you have a moral high ground, right? But you're also not even doing your full due diligence then, to make sure that you are taking care of the poor, right? Supporting those who need help, right? So I started this organization after I ended up meeting a sister at a party, actually. And I overheard what she did, and it just sounded really cool. I had no idea that she was one of the founding mothers of the reproductive justice framework. And that framework began right there in Chicago. Right, in 1994, reproductive justice will be 30 years this year in June, right? And for the last 30 years, herself and those other 11 women have been working hard to educate, galvanize, right? Other sisters like myself reach for us when others were casting us aside and throwing us away, and teach us about our bodies. A huge part of the work that I do is teaching people about their bodies so that you don't even have to have an abortion. We don't have to get there, right? We know that there are other things that lead us to needing an abortion: rape, right? Danger during pregnancy, and Black women have the highest rates of maternal death in the country, right? So especially in places like Chicago. and in Memphis, right? As progressive as we are, as much as we have in Chicago, what we still haven't quite figured out is how to save a mother's life on the labor and delivery table, right? So we've got to be able to ensure that people not only understand their bodies, understand their fertility, know when they're ovulating, but it's equally important to me, and especially since I had a male child, that we teach boys and men about how to use condoms and talk about consent and all of those really important things about healthy relationships, right? About, understanding having your own values and what that really looks like. So, this work for me is it's very personal to me. And so then when Roe v. Wade was overturned, I felt like somebody was taking my ability to make decisions not only about my life, but I'm the oldest of 7 children. It's 6 girls my mama had. So 6 of us, right, stand the potential of needing a healthcare option that we cannot access, not because of a scientific issue, but because of a political and racist informed issue. An issue don't have nothing to do with us. Right. And let's be clear, it's not about our bodies. It's not about our babies. They don't care so much about our children. It's plenty of our kids in the world right now. It's plenty of our kids in America right now. The problem is that white women aren't having children. Right. And that scares them to death. So in order to force white women to have babies, you will take all of our rights away. Right. But you also, but so I think that for me, it is just I'm very passionate about this topic, and I work very hard to make sure that as many sisters and brothers know about their bodies and understand how to engage in sexual behavior that is a safe way, right? As safe as possible, as planned as possible is how we walk this thing back.
Hey, I mean, you open up a lot of things there. And I thank you all for allowing her the opportunity to do that, because I know that she had a story to tell. One other thing that James Baldwin said to white Americans was that he knows one thing for sure, that white Americans don't want to be black in America. He said, if there's one thing I do know you don't want to be black in America. And so, I mean, it's interesting.
Before you go to your next question, I want to talk about a comment here from Mr. Smith said, Black people will be the majority. He who was first shall be last. He who was last shall be first. And teach fatherhood and manhood. Too many are miseducated. So we thank you and the other 2 beautiful ladies on the panel. And sexual behavior is taboo. Yeah. So, I just want to get the comments as they're rolling in. So go ahead.
And I'm going to say this because, this is a Christian show and people, you ain't supposed to be having sex and you ain't married. We do a thing called Christian Real. And so let's be real. There's a lot of Christians out there having sex and ain't married. We just want to tell the truth and shame the devil. There's a lot of Christians out there having sex and ain't married. There's a lot of Christians out there that live in it. And so you have to be educated on things like this. My body, my choice, and what it means. You opened up so many things. I almost can't remember everything you were saying. We'll get back to that. But Vanessa, when you hear something about people trying to mislead you the way that, Miss Scott was talking about, and this sister is passionate. Like I said, we talked with each other, and I love her spirit and what she's standing for. How does it feel go back to Vanessa 18, and how does it feel for this woman now to be told that you don't have a choice to be able to make for your own body, and the fact that at this time you don't even get a vote anymore, because if you go to a different state, you could be arrested because of what you're trying to do from the state that you're in if you go to another state. Talk about how that affects you as a woman now, and talk to that 18-year-old and help her out with that.
Well, one thing, and I would have to talk to my 18-year-old self, is that one thing she needs to understand, and I have to agree with the young lady that I'm sorry, Scott. I forgot her name, Mrs. Scott, because she discussed some very good points. It's not about denying us the rights, because we have a lot of kids. It's about it's about increasing the number. She's right, increasing the number of white kids, white people, the white population, because they are dwindling like crazy. And she's correct with that.
Oh, yeah.
They are afraid there's gonna get to the point where it's so many Blacks, Mexicans, Asians, whatever. It's gonna be so many other ethnicities running around in the United States that the white people will be passed over, passed up, and moved away. So she's correct when she says it's all about somebody else. It has nothing to do with you. It's about their race. And if it's something that she really wanted to do, I would talk to my 18-year-old self and say, look, we're going to find a way. The same way they did in the 1950s and the 1960s, because in the 1950s and 60s, the mafia was running abortion clinics. You made a phone call, they gave you prices, you picked out which package you want, you came to this room, there was one woman there performing the abortion, they had probably had 2 or 3 guys with her, bip, bam, thank you, ma'am, it was over.
Hey, I want to interject real quick. But now, because this is so intentional of how they're doing this to keep their race at a higher number,
Yes.
whoever's involved with this will be penalized. If I say, Vanessa, well, Illinois is a state that's legal with it. I want to,
Yes.
if I'm in a state like Atlanta or what, I mean,
But in Indiana,
I'll go to
Georgia,
Indiana,
so I'm going somewhere else, and I want to go to a
Yeah.
state that is legal. They're going to penalize me, the doctor, whoever's driving me there. I mean, they got to set up that it's no way around this because everybody's going to get hit. And that's disturbing. That's too much control, not just our body, but the other people. It's like a domino effect. That, hey, if I'm going to help Miss McCain, now Mrs. McCain, now what's that doctor name? We're going to find out who gave her that abortion. We're going to shut that clinic down because they don't supposed to be doing it, even if it is legal. So, I mean, Glenda, what's your thoughts on that? That's just
Let me say one more thing. Let me say one more thing right quick. The only way this can be done without being penalized and stuff is not to just, you may have to temporarily move to those cities. That's a way out too. But go on, Glenda.
well, that brings to mind a recent case where there's a woman in Texas who had a child. She was pregnant. The child had an illness. The child was not going to survive after birth. She petitioned a court to let her terminate the pregnancy. Texas, we know that abortion is illegal in Texas. The judge ruled on it. Initially, the judge ruled on it and said, okay, we're going to let you do this. And a white male put in, no, this is not going to happen. She had to go to, I believe, to New Mexico to end up getting her abortion. Now, what's so ironic, and I don't know, this is not necessarily based in fact, I had heard prior to her having this condition that this woman was anti-abortion. She didn't believe in it. And she was a Caucasian woman. She didn't believe in abortion. But what I always think about this whole situation, because it is race, it's white men that are afraid of their position in the United States. And so they're the ones that are putting out a lot of these no abortion, the different states. My thing is if white women are going to find a way to have abortion, they're going to find a way. It may not be called abortion. It'll be called a DNC, or she had a miscarriage. But they're, like everyone is saying, this is all race-based. If I can't have abortion, I have this child, but then my state doesn't allow adequate food for the child after it's born, or these states that don't have food stamp program, not food stamp, summer programs for food for kids. You're not pro for the kid. You're not pro for the kid at all. It's just all, to me, it's just all about just control, making sure that these white women have more children and make sure that Black women cannot, or minority women cannot.
Yeah, it's always been about population. I've said that many times before. If Black people ever want to get an advance in this world, the one thing we have to do is increase our population, because until then, it's going to be difficult for us to be able to fight against some of the things that are trying to stop us from growing. You know, but I don't. Sharice, I don't know if you had anything you want to add on to that as well before I go to another comment.
Well, I think, who also comes to my mind is our good sister Brittany Watts in Ohio, who was just acquitted from an indictment that would have put her in prison for a miscarriage that she was having, right? She went to the hospital 2 or 3 times and they sent her back home. And basically, she ended up miscarrying her baby in the toilet. And she still was being held. And let me make sure I pulled it up so I could read it properly. She had been charged with a felony after she miscarried in her bathroom and was later admitted to a hospital for a life-threatening hemorrhage. Excuse me. And so luckily, right, because the other part of this is not only, and I think about this, because I advocate, my first community is the Black community. Black women are also being used as the guinea pig to advance policies that are going to hurt the whole, right? So, clearly the woman was having a miscarriage and they did not, the hospital clearly didn't want to take the heat for the baby being, for her having a miscarriage at the hospital. So they sent her home to deal with not only the mental, the emotional, the physical ramifications of a miscarriage, but also the criminal piece as well. So when medical providers, because I think that that's a very important piece to lift up here and what this law has actually done in our country. When medical providers stop being doctors, right, to protect themselves before they think about the oath that they took to be doctors, when we think about how many sisters need to be able to have healthy pregnancies and have healthy labor and delivery situations, but that is already a problematic issue in our country, very specific to Black women. That means that some Black woman, it wasn't this particular Black woman, thank God, but some Black woman is going to end up being the one that they're able to get across the free throw line and use as an example to have precedent, to have a case that will stick, that will be able to use to indict folks across the country. So I'm also, I'm very concerned also about like what that looks like as well. And even here in Tennessee, because I'm in Tennessee right now, there was a bill that was submitted today by one of our Tennessee Republicans that are basically like our good sister here said, where, if a parent is trying to take their child out of Tennessee because they want that child to get an abortion, they could be charged with abortion trafficking, right? And so we knew that it was coming. We knew that even trying to make a decision, because I guess, you said something earlier, the church isn't really willing to have a conversation about sex, which means we're not having a conversation about molestation. We're not having a conversation about incest, but too many of us, male and female, have this history of sexual violence, even before we were 15, 10, 5, many times, right? And so, there isn't even room, there is no space in any way, shape, or form. It's okay to let a 10-year-old bring a child into the world, a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old bring a child into the world, even if that child is the product of rape or incest or molestation in some way. That is not only criminal, that's evil, right? And so I think that also what really saddens me and angers me is that little girls don't have a chance to be little girls, and little Black girls are already adultified as it is, right? So the fact that even if there's an opportunity that, like our mothers or our aunties, or in some cases, our grandmothers. Let's be clear. My grandmother, both my grandmothers were pro-choice. God bless both of their souls. Both of them were pro-choice. Both of them were teen mothers. Both of them understood the importance of being able to be self-determining and to be able to make decisions about whether or not they were ready to be mothers when they became mothers. So I think, so this isn't brand new, right? And so I when I think about kind of what's been shared just along those lines, yeah, I mean, we knew that's next. That's the part that's coming, and that's going around the country. And I think that one of the things that I've been saying, in spaces and when I'm in Chicago working is Illinois is not that safe. Illinois is a pro-choice state sitting in between. Every other state that touches Illinois has either an abortion ban or a high abortion restriction, like in Missouri, right? So Illinois isn't safe either. And so many people are coming to Illinois. I know that the governor of Tennessee was trying to pass a bill where medical providers would be able to tell Tennessee law enforcement if somebody came to their state to get an abortion. Right. One of the reasons that I even started the organization, I opened Sister Reach Illinois last year. One of the reasons that I did that is because we wanted to continue to be a pipeline to support folks. One of the things that we have is a practical support fund, which offers transportation, food, childcare, and lodging support to folks who need to go get abortion care. We did it anyway, right, in the state, but now folks are having to they need a plane ticket, like they need a train ticket, like people who need real money just to get across state lines. So if abortion trafficking is a problem, it's something, a bill that they're trying to pass even here so that Tennesseans can't come to Illinois, which is one of the closest states to get care. It's not going to just be reserved, right, for parents or guardians of a minor. It will be imposed on people like ourselves.
Well, let me just say this
so
too.
That part for me is super problematic, and and I think it's very interesting that conservative politicians constantly try to control people with criminalization.
Yeah, one of the things I'll say about Illinois is this: Illinois is as safe as the governor, because if we ever get a Republican governor, it's going to change. It's a wrap. And here's the thing that I want to ask the two ladies here, because this is one thing that disturbs me. And once again, for people who are just listening to the show, this is the Let's Stay Together talk show. Reverend Rick McCain, along with my baby, my girl, my boo, Brenda McCain here. We've got Glenda, Vanessa, and Sharice on here talking about my body, my choice. We're talking about abortion. We're talking about reproduction rights. Women's rights. I mean, we're talking about everything, and it is something that the church doesn't talk about that we need to talk about, and we're going to touch bases on that. But ladies, let me ask you all this, and Vanessa and Glenda, when you want to jump in, just jump in. It's almost like double dutch. We got to jump in, because I know I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one saying the least, on this conversation. I'm good with that. But you know what scares me, and correct me if I'm wrong. There was a day back when abortion was not accepted, and women were using hangers and all kinds of things to pull that baby out. What worries me, I mean, I'm not, my feeling about abortion is I don't like it. But I don't think
you know what, when you say
I don't
that,
think a woman should have a choice. I don't think a woman shouldn't have a choice.
but the misnomer is that no one likes abortion.
Yeah.
Right.
Nobody says, oh, they get up every morning, I want abortion. I think the issue is that a person should have the choice to govern their body.
Yeah. I agree.
And so because our churches and a lot of we don't talk about it, but nobody likes abortion, but it should be something that's available to a woman, whether it's her choice because of her circumstances, her choice because it's not healthy. There was a special on recently on ABC with Diane Sawyer and Rachel Scott, and they talked about the long-term ramifications of a lot of women that go to the hospital because they're having a miscarriage or they're having some health crisis, and how hospitals are turning them away because, and doctors, because they don't want to lose their license for performing abortion or dealing with the miscarriage. And these women are and there's, and as well as their spouses, are traumatized because of the fact that some of them, one lady, after she had her miscarriage, and it was the whole situation, so she decided that she was not going to have any more children. She ended up getting a hysterectomy. Why should women have to resort to that because of the of and I'm going to white males in our countries, and they're so afraid, so they have to penalize. Nobody wants abortion. Nobody. I don't get up in the morning and say I want to go get abortion, but it should be something that I have a choice at being able to. Just like if I have a strep throat, I should be able to go and get that resolved.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
And I'm gonna say this here, because it may be a shock to my sister, but for Sharice that don't know, Vanessa Mason is my sister.
Oh, awesome.
I was talking from a personal experience because
Mhm.
something that my sister does not know is that I've had two situations where I was with someone they had abortions,
Mm.
and I personally
Is that why you became religious?
No, that didn't have anything to do with that. This was when I was young. 17 was one, I think maybe in the 20s. And it was not what I wanted, but it was the choice of the young lady to want to do that. And so when I said I don't agree with it, I'm saying it from the man's perspective that since this happened, it was something that really troubled me. But I still felt ultimately that that woman had the choice because it was her body, her choice to make that decision, and I didn't go against the decision. So it's, both sides have feelings about how they feel about that, but ultimately I still felt that that woman had to make the choice. But going back to the coat hanger and stuff like that, am I crazy or wrong to think that something like that can happen again if we continue to, and again, I'm gonna talk to my minister here. People using the evangelical lie that we're doing this because of the Christian right, which is just a lie that they're sharing. They don't really care about that, but that's the umbrella they're under. Am I wrong to feel that moving that choice, because ultimately we have to go to God for everything that we do, not to man. But am I wrong to think that removing the choice like that could go back to some kind of craziness like that, where you people are doing manual ways to remove a child?
Out of desperation, people will do anything. The same way they did it before, they will do it again. They may not go the hanger way. They may take a lot of prescriptions and stuff that causes them to lose the child. They may, do something extremely physically exerting to lose the child. They will, depending on the dire need to remove this child from their body, you have people that's so desperate they will do anything. They will stab themselves. They will do whatever.
Yeah. Sharice?
Yeah, and I agree with that, right? People, when your back is up against the wall, you're gonna do what you need to do to survive, right? And what I appreciate you saying, Reverend McCain, is, your personal understanding and just how you felt in that moment, around abortion. But that would not mean that you would impose that on someone else and their ability to make a decision about their bodies. I mean, it is what it is at this. Black women in particular, folk have the saints. National organization called In Our Own Voice, National Black Reproductive Justice Agenda. And we did some polling data over these last maybe 5 years or so, just to kind of hear very particularly from Christian Black women. And one of some of what came back from that was that Christian women overwhelmingly supported access to abortion, right? That the majority, 80% of the folks that we spoke to believe that abortion should remain legal and that women should be able to get them safely, right? So basically, so even if I don't say the statistics, folks, basically the sister said, if I get pregnant and I don't want to, if my child gets pregnant and she doesn't want to, I don't care if I'm on my way to Sunday school. We're going to take care of this and she's going to be able to thrive. Because I think that, and I know we're talking about reproductive rights, and I'll say this as a reproductive and sexual justice organization, because it's a little different than rights. Rights is just literally the legal component of this, the Constitution. But reproductive justice, and I think, which is a very important difference here, really centers the quality of life of the person before, during, and after situations like this.
Yeah.
Right. Our ability not just to be able to get an abortion, but to be able to put our babies up for adoption, or to be able to get, in vitro fertilization, to have a surrogate. Right. It talks about our ability to be able to get access to sex education, our ability to practice abstinence and that be healthy, or if we're going to have sex, to do that safely in a way, that doesn't end up not just with a pregnancy, because that's really not the worst thing that we could be talking about here. There's a whole lot of other things that happen in the course of sex, right? If it is unprotected, that can alter the lives of people, right? And so, so I do think that, we stand the risk of really having some dangerous situations. We were already seeing, we all are watching the news. We hear about babies being put in garbage dumpsters on the side of apartment buildings. This isn't new, right? I think our people in particular have been doing what they had to do to survive, whatever that looked like, right? And, and though I don't think that anybody wants to think about, folks falling downstairs and drinking bleach and hitting themselves in the stomach and all those things, this is where we absolutely can go in a mass form. Yes, ma'am.
I got a question because she is so powerful along with the other two, but this is my question. I'm putting it in form of a statement. Women who use birth control, now I'm all pro-choice, pro-life. Women who use abortion as a birth control. Method. And I admit that bothers me because I'm a Gen X, generation here, and back in the day, they was using it before the after day sex pill and all of that. I've known someone to have 7 abortions, and it's like, what the heck?
Whoa.
Stop! Use the Planned Parenthood, do something to stop this. And they'll tell you again, like now, I'm my body, my choice, which is true, but that's a hard pill to swallow right there for me. So help me to grasp that, because so many people, I'm not saying you have to be a limit on how many abortions someone should have, but that was a little taxing to hear that. That you could,
I think it's still an individual situation. Abortions are really safe procedures, and okay. I think that it really comes down to a person's personal comfort. For you, 7 abortions may be excessive for that person, right? It may not necessarily be excessive, and I think that that's where our culture is coming. I think not only just us thinking about like how many times are you going to make this quote unquote mistake, right? So I think that, there's one of my big things I talk about in this work is compassion and mercy, right? And we have to lead with that and think with that first, right? I don't know that person's situation. I'll be real. I've had 3 abortions myself, right? The first time, was after I had that child, right? And found myself pregnant, and I was like, this is not gonna work, because by that time my job was already lost and I knew I couldn't bring another baby in the world. The second time was someone, I thought we were using a condom and just realized that, he stuck it up under the cover. And purposely was trying to get me pregnant. And the third time was when I was married, and I knew that we weren't ready for a child yet. And we made a decision together, my ex-husband and I. What I will say is what I don't feel like we're talking enough about, even with we talking about 7 abortions, 3 abortions, 12 abortions, however many, is education. Right. We are still having sex like we on the plantation. we are still having sex like we are being bred. Right. And so I think that there is something culturally that we are going to have. This is why, I mean, we do education in churches with churches intentionally, right? Because we do want to have conversations about sexual behavior and values and healthy relationships and being ready and planning, right? We don't always have to live from a space of deficit and let me make a way out of no way. And my back is always up against the wall. There are some ways that we can arm ourselves. And so I would say what my question would have been to that sister is, sis, do you know, how to use birth controllers that work for you? Or, how do you feel about using condoms? Or do you know about your body? Do you know the times of the month that you can become pregnant? Or how can I support you? Because it troubles me, right, that you are using this particular healthcare service when you could do something that potentially would not put up this particular level of wear and tear on your body. Let's talk about just like charting your menstrual cycle naturally. I teach people how to chart their cycle, right, on purpose, because nobody taught me until it was after the fact. When I learned about my body, I was like, so you mean to tell me all I had to do was count and I would know when I could get pregnant? Oh, okay then, you know what I'm saying? So, and it seems so silly to me. So I feel like you have, but I would never shame you for how you felt about it, right? Because I do sex education every day, talk to sisters every day. I would never shame you on how you feel about it. I will only say the pivot I would say is to ask then, how can I help to support you to get some other, healthcare support that you need? Right. Because I think that, and I know if some of my colleagues are hearing that, like, why are you answering this question this way? Because we got to have real conversations. We're talking to everyday Black folks who are dealing with this particular issue. We're not talking about it from this way tip-top academic social justice point of view. We're talking to everyday folks. And a Black woman said, I got a problem with it. So how do we help to empower her to not have a problem with it or to pivot so she can support the sister having 7 abortions? Yeah. And my suggestion is I'll support you by going with you to the clinic. I help you work through that situation to get you some birth control. Are you aware of emergency contraception? Do you have access to a condom? Can I walk you to the Planned Parenthood so they can teach you about your body or wherever in the city that, you know what I'm saying? So I think that there's ways that we can do this lovingly and compassionately, right? I don't necessarily, have particularly a quote unquote problem with the 7 abortions, but I do have a problem with the constant lack of knowledge.
Yeah. There you go. But
you know what I'm saying? That's my problem, right? My problem is.
This is
go ahead, Vanessa. I'm sorry.
With this, I'm sorry, Vanessa. This is something that an individual had got pregnant at 12, and from the parents, you know how back in the day they send the child away, we'll think they pregnant, always speculated, and the child come back and they have a baby out there somewhere. But the parents had said this to them, you could get an abortion. It's legal. And I was like, wow, you're instilling that, into your child. This is all you have to do. And I guess, like you said, the best thing you can do in situations like that is so many contraceptives out there. We could go together if you don't know about it, because when you know better, you do better, right? And so, like I said, she had learned this from her parents. And I was like, break that cycle. And now they're breaking it for you. The government is handling your choices.
But you know what? We think about it. When we were coming up, my mother never discussed sex with me.
That part.
Never. Yep. Okay. One of my friends got pregnant at 13. She didn't know who the daddy was. It's between two guys. Her mother kept her in the house. Like, she had a younger sister and an older brother. They could go outside. She couldn't. She had to stay in the house until her mother came home from work. Well, the guys would come over there while her mother was at work, and they both had sex with her. She did not have any information on sex, birth control, anything like that. And she became a mother at 14. her mother really made her life miserable after that. And my issue is that, well, maybe you may not have wanted her to have an abortion, but my God, why wouldn't you, say anything to her about, about sex? With me, I'm trying to remember how. Oh, I found out through other people, older people, and my attitude was, I don't want a baby. I want to go outside and play. I would go and visit her every day, but I felt bad because she was trapped in the house at 14 years old. She couldn't do anything but stay in the house and take care of her baby. She couldn't hang outside with us. She couldn't go to parties. She couldn't go skate. She couldn't do anything that we did. And if that's not, to me, one of the best medicines to avoid getting into that situation again, I don't know what is, because none of the rest of us that we were friends with her, none of us got pregnant. But to me, my thing is, you have to share this knowledge with your daughters. You have to share this knowledge with your sons so they won't do anything, because she didn't know doing that was going to get her pregnant. She had no idea. So how many thousands, hundreds, millions of young girls ended up in that same situation because the mother didn't want to teach them anything, because the mother was didn't think that that's something they wanted to talk to them about, or they afraid to talk to them about it, or didn't think the daughter was involved in it. What, why didn't you talk to them?
Yeah.
And that's the same with me. My mother didn't talk about it. She didn't, when I started my cycle, I can remember it as if it was yesterday. I came on my cycle. I was at my grandmother's house. She sent me up to the corner store to get the pads. Okay. And that was it.
Yep.
Once a month, it was no discussion about, how you learned about how you get pregnant, but it wasn't from an educational standpoint. It wasn't from your mom saying, well, this could happen, or my grandmother, or my grandfather saying this could happen. You just, now that you have a cycle, you knew from maybe what you read, because, being raised in the 60s and 70s, it was limited information even then. It wasn't until the mid 70s that abortion became legal. So you didn't know anything about it. I mean, I don't know, none of my friends, I went to Catholic schools, so the nuns wasn't talking about it. And every year when I go back to high school, another girl would come back over the summer, where that spring she had engaged in sexual intercourse, and now she's showing now. There was no discussion, just so and so is pregnant. That was it. It was, so the education is the most important part of it, because of the fact that if we don't educate our children, boys and girls, to know what the ramifications are, the choices they have. I see what you say. So many people use abortion, but there's so many other options. Like you said, I never knew, when I was younger, you could count when you're gonna ovulate, all this stuff. None of that was presented to us. So, and I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of young people that still are not being educated in that way.
Absolutely not. They're not.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
Miss,
When you think
Mrs.
about-
Mrs. Mason, turn your camera around because you're sideways.
Okay. I have my cord in here. Okay.
Okay.
You know what? One thing that they never discussed, well, they've discussed it lightly, but not really into detail, about the number of nuns that had abortions.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Huh.
they found out so many nuns ended up pregnant, having abortions up inside the rectory, doing things to cause miscarriages. I mean, they've had movies out, books about it. It was when it blew up into the world and everyone found out about it. It was like oh my God, everyone's going to hell now. The nuns are pregnant. They're getting ready to have, they're having abortions and stuff. They're getting pregnant. They're having sex. But no one bothered to say anything about the person who pregnated these nuns, the ministers, the priests. They
Mhm.
said nothing about them.
Mhm.
It was all the fault of the nun. She's a horrible person now. What type of nun is that would, get pregnant and blah, 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 blah. They weren't allowed access to birth control. Why they did what they did, I really can't explain that. It's not for me to explain. They're human. They may have feelings and needs. Who knows what happened? All I gotta say is it happened. But the world was torn apart when all this came out. They couldn't believe what was going on. It's just, a lot of Catholics just really lost their minds behind it.
I think we
So,
think that if we don't talk about stuff that is not gonna happen.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Just because
growing
we're
up,
not talking about it don't mean people not having sex.
growing up in the Catholic Church, and the nuns, the priests were either Punch or Judy, and they said Punch because they drink, or Judy because they were gay, and then the nuns were
Sorry.
they wore the habits and stuff. But a lot of nuns, it was because their family put them in told them they should go in a convent and this, that, and other. And then when the revolution, the sexual revolution and the hippies and all that of the 70s and the early 80s, a lot of nuns realized this is not my life's calling. This was my parents or my auntie or somebody put me in there, and
They left.
that's why you lost a lot of priests and nuns when they were able to come out of their habits. The nuns not wearing their habits anymore. But going to Catholic school, high school, there was no discussion about reproduction, sex, anything like that. That was all taboo.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
most schools didn't discuss that at all
Mm-hmm.
about that. And
Still don't.
back in our day, parents didn't discuss that because one, they didn't want you to know about it, and then you think you're ready about it, but you found out about it because
we were
people
doing it.
older people was doing it. But let me, I
You
want to
had
talk
sex
about.
education in your class?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yes,
sex
you did, because I
education.
had it. I had it in
Yeah.
seventh grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you was an advance, I guess. But I don't remember having sex education in school. I just don't. I mean, maybe I just wasn't into it, but I don't remember having sex education.
It was awkward.
But let me go to something because I'm gonna ask Ms. Scott about this because we talk about body autonomy, and body autonomy is defined as the right to make decisions about your own body, life, and future without coercion or violence. Now, you've been involved in this Sister Reach thing, and you talk about this body autonomy, but you've had to deal with some of the violence and just trying to educate people on this, correct?
Oh yeah, I mean, and it is one of the most unfortunate pieces. This is why I know that this is not a godly mission. That this is not a moral mission or motive, right? Because the way that my pastor just preached the National Baptist Convention today, and the first time a woman was ever up there, she was talking about uh, the scripture around Jesus being crucified and Pontius Pilate, really shirking his responsibility and becoming a coward and not, standing for truth and justice, right? These same people, right? Those same types of individuals who always act like they have the moral high ground, um, have proven to be extremely violent, right? We got a glimpse of it on January the 6th with the quote unquote insurrectionists, at the White House, and I have unfortunately had to deal with folks not just sending hate mail. There's a picture of me on the internet right now where I did an interview with New York Magazine, and the anti-abortion folks took my picture and pushed it around the internet, I guess, to kind of shame and shut me up, and and talk about the type of organization that I had, call me a pro-abortionist and all of this foolishness. In even a few years ago, I got a chance to do a testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee here in Tennessee about the 6-week abortion ban they was trying to pass at the time. And when I started calling out white supremacy and all the things, and they wanted to shut me up and shut my mic down and sick the sheriffs on me and things like that. I've definitely been, nervous about. I mean, I know that my face, along with a lot of my colleagues' face, is kind of on this list, right, of people that, like people that you need to know, targets for folks. I mean, I've had somebody try to run me off the road before, I've had to deal with some very unpleasant situations, right? And even in Chicago, back in 2010, when there was an abortion billboard campaign that was launched in Chicago, and it said that every 21 minutes, the next leader is aborted. And it was a picture of President Obama's face on there.
Wow.
And
I
black
heard,
male
yeah.
preacher. Yeah, and one in particular there was a press conference where pro-life activists who had basically recruited black male preachers to shame black women for having abortions. And the Joe Scheidler, who at the time, I'm not sure if he is now, was the president of the Pro-Life Action League or committee, was there. And, I guess whatever I was saying, I think one of the things I remember shouting out to the brothers was, can we sit down and reason together? Let's have a real, how could you stand with white men and shame black women when we didn't have these babies by ourselves? We didn't get pregnant alone. We know what's happening in these Chicago streets. We know what's going down in our households that nobody is talking about. And I guess he got a little pissed off about it and walked up to me and leaned down in my ear and said, "It was your black child who threw a brick through my window." I said, "So why are you out here then? Because if you think that the child that I'm aborting is a criminal, is going to be a criminal, right? So why are you here standing with black pastors shaming us?" Right? So, I've never forgotten what he did. Right. And I remember just being so angry. There was I don't know, I can't remember which newspaper caught it, where my boss and another sister at the time, who was an advocate who used to run the Chicago Abortion Fund, they're like walking me away from the crowd, screaming and hollering, because my thing was, how dare you get with people that I'm supposed to trust to hold the word of God and help with guidance over my life, and act as if we are like nobody knows what's going on in secret, in private, what we're not talking about in black households, in black communities, with black children, with little black girls, with grown women, right? Because I don't want to just keep putting this on young people like it's young people making decisions and all the things. It's grown women, 30, 40. If you still got a period, you can still get pregnant, right? So, who are in situations, right, where they're having to make some real hardcore decisions about their health. And we're not going to act like black women are safe in this country, because we are not, and we have not been, right? And so I think that for me, so I have had to deal with different types of violence over the years, and with that violence has never been met a solid commitment to ensure that I never have to go to an abortion clinic again. Because see, this is how I roll. I would love for Sister Reach to be put out of business because people don't need our services anymore. I would love for me to say, hey, we don't have to give out any more condoms. We don't have to issue out no more emergency contraception. We don't have to do another HIV test. We don't have to give out another clean syringe, because people don't need our services anymore. Put us out of business, please. Put us out of business. But until everybody gets on board and takes a level of responsibility or even feel empowered to do so, right? Over their own lives. Organizations like Assist to Reach, we don't offer abortion, but we try to help you get what you need, whatever healthcare option that looks like for you. You know, if you want to talk about abstinence, we can do that. We can do that. If you want to talk about abortion, we can do that. If you need to get it, when you want to put your child up for adoption, we can help you with that, right? But I would love for us to be put out of business because everybody had the tools to make decisions about themselves and their bodies, because rape was not a problem anymore, because molestation ain't a problem anymore, because Black women aren't dying in the labor and delivery room anymore.
Yeah.
I would love that. But that is not our reality. That is not the infrastructure of our medical community. Right now, a Black woman is dying having a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And in that same breath, another Black woman is being raped. Right. And until we really start dealing with that. So so I have definitely dealt with the safety issues, but I keep going. One, because I know I'm doing godly work. This ministry, I'm not a pastor. My organization is my pulpit, right? Me getting out here in the community, in these streets, teaching our people about themselves. That is how I do my ministry work. That is my most definitely, not only like I said, a professional cause, but my personal cause. I don't want a sister to have to end up at Planned Parenthood if she don't need to go there, to be quite honest, right? I'm like you, Sister McCain. I would love to help somebody not to have 7 abortions if I could.
Mm-hmm.
I have no desire, and I've stood with women and held their hands while they were having abortions. As the tears flow down, as they're feeling away, I prayed with sisters having abortions. You know what I'm saying? So, so there's so much to this thing and I think that the way that the propaganda and the rhetoric is set up is that we just haphazardly, we just waking up, just having abortions and stuff. Like in the same way people think that folks just waking up getting, I just want to be strung out on cocaine today. Nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that.
That's interesting. I'm gonna come back to that because I know you were dealing with something on that, like fighting for women who were trying to get them to have abortions or something. Correct me if I'm wrong. They were saying they were taking drugs and harming the baby. What was that about? I know that.
Not trying to get them to have abortions, but that's actually the reason how we actually stopped the law from going on, because we demonstrated. So there was a law that was passed, and it's been, this is going on in every city USA, especially in cities with poor white populations or poor Black populations, where women are using drugs, right? And but they're going to prison. They're being charged. Okay. And especially a lot of the anti-abortion laws are kind of being tacked on in this particular case, as if, like I said, somebody wake up and just want to be on drugs. That's not how this thing goes. And instead of making sure that there are more behavioral health clinics and mental health clinics, you rather put somebody in jail for getting high while they are pregnant. I mean, okay, we're not putting people in jail for smoking a cigarette while they're pregnant. Both are drugs. Nicotine is a drug. Cocaine is a drug, right? And we figured out how to normalize cigarettes, but women were crossing state lines to avoid, because you have to they take your blood when you're having a baby, and so if they find drugs in your system, Department of Children's Services is called, and so was law enforcement at the time. This was between 2014 and 2016 here in Tennessee. This is happening all over the country. This is happening in Illinois. This is happening all over the country. Yeah. Right. And one of the ways we were able to help to get that law ended was because we were able to, really demonstrate statistics showing that women who were pregnant and afraid of being arrested were crossing state lines to have that baby, or were having abortion so that they wouldn't even be on the radar of law enforcement. Right. Again, desperate situations causing for a desperate act, right? And in this case, that's what it was. And so, the one legislator who was on our side was like, well, I don't want women in my district to have abortions, so I'm going to vote against this. And it worked out in our favor, thank God, in that moment. But it still did not change the culture of shame and blame, and people were still losing their children for using drugs without making sure that a sister, like I said, had access to behavioral health care. So that was definitely something that we also that we helped to fight.
I want to say this. Susan B. Anthony spoke and said that the sacred right of a woman to her own person is to her own person. So, I mean, it's basically saying, she's saying, the sacred right is that we should have the right to make decisions for our own person.
Yeah.
Vanessa, we hear about the violence, Vanessa and Glenda, we hear about the violence that, you go through. And I think sometimes people forget that Christianity was met with violence when it first was came forth. And there's a lot of people didn't want to do that. And I will even tell you this. I shared this with Miss Scott, that the first thing I was going to go to in ministry was Istanbul in China. And at the time, Istanbul was killing Christians, people coming there because it was Muslims. And they didn't want Christianity to come there. And so Christianity had to go through the same thing. But it was the ability for people to stand strong and educate people of the Word of God. And this is what we're doing here. And I want people to understand that this is education. Like, Cherie said, we're educated. You need to have the education, because this is going to happen to someone that
Period.
they need to have the information, instead of being in a dark horse or not a dark horse, a dark alley or a dark window or in darkness about something and not shedding the light on it. A lot of times we try to run away, especially the church. We try to run away from it because we don't want to talk about this because it doesn't look like it's biblical. But Jesus dealt with a lot of things on earth that wasn't biblical because it was happening on earth. And so we have to be able to open up and speak about these things. And as you said, I don't have a church, but this show is my pulpit. And this is how I share about things that God wants us to share. But Vanessa, Glenda, the violence that, she was talking about, what does that mean to you when someone can go through a violent situation because they're trying to educate someone?
Because, well, if that's the case, it's something that they feel so strongly about, and they know that what they're doing is not something that's going to affect one, but it's going to affect masses. So when you have that feeling, that gut feeling in your mind and in your heart, dealing with is whatever you have to deal with is not important. What's important to you is that you get this message across, you get this information across, you get this project done, you do what you need to do. And the violence and stuff, if that's part of the program, that's part of the program. But the outcome should always outweigh the violence.
Yeah.
But I think what happens is that oftentimes they feel that if they're violent with their behavior and try to shut people down. I think about a couple of years ago, I think it was pre-pandemic or right around the pandemic, when the Me Too and all the white women were coming out and doing all, and they were recognized, they had the little hats, and everything. And the white males were so against it, and being there was violence, they would protest and all that. It's a scare tactic. It's a tactic. If I you get the head, it's like you cut off the head, you can get the whole organization. I can't think of the lady's name that started, she out of New York, the Me Too organization. But it's just, I don't know. It's just that I just always look at the fact that how, because all I've been all the time has been a Black woman, is that how violence is always so, think that we can just handle it so well. When the molestation or the incest or abuse goes on in our household, or the violence is against our leaders or whatever, because of something that Black women believe, we're just supposed to just take it. And I think um, it's I don't know, it's a vicious cycle to say the least. So
But what it
Yeah.
does is that it shows other races how strong we are. You
yeah,
can throw what you want to throw at us, and we're going to deal with it. We're going to take it. We may not come out in the best shape, but we're going to come out.
yeah. I mean, think about right now, African American women are the most educated in the country right now. You know, we're the ones that every time if you go to work and you're assertive, you're considered the angry Black woman. So, you know, we figure out a way to get around. You know, you have to temper, you have to code switch, you have to do everything. And so the violence is just a part of what a African American woman deals with in life, period. So this is just another component of it.
I don't want to cut you off, Miss Brenda.
As an African American woman, we are the sum of everything you guys said in one word. We are resilient. And we
Yeah.
always been that way. And a lot of people say, oh, Black women think they superwoman. We didn't put that cape on because we wanted to. We put it
Right.
on because we had to. Everything that is thrown at us, we have to fight to get it off of us and still thrive through what we're going through. We never, say, didn't beat me down. I can't do it. No, we're going to persevere. We're going to continue to do what we have to do 10 times more. But the thing with all of this, going back to the beginning, this is so intentional that 2 years ago, coming up in June, I believe, that all of this is all about saving the white race. And African American women, we get the butt, the grunt of everything, from the lowest pay scale on a job, from being, oh, like you said, Glenda, if you're assertive, if you're the angry Black woman, no, you get tired, really tired. That's why I said, Sharice, your fight is so much appreciated as someone is doing this. For Glenda and Vanessa, you saying your spin on this, I love hearing all of this. Like I said, I never have been pregnant. Never, I haven't had a biological child, but I have been a mother and a parent. But I always look at the Black mother, the stuff that we go through. And now you stripping me for the right. At one pivotal low moment in my life, I make a decision and say, I can't do this. Not that I don't love my child, because it's a part of me, but I want to have the choice to say, not now. I can't raise a child now. But for you to make that decision for me and make it seem like it's glammed over for the other races, it's like, come on, y'all. We gotta do better. And like I said, loving Sharice, she putting all this education out here for us. And I hope people are listening tonight and taking this in and to do what you need to do. Because Planned Parenthood has been a staple in our lives for a long time, and I appreciate that. And to be honest, though, Sharice, because it's like you said, you're Illinois and Tennessee. My family from Memphis, Tennessee, but here in Chicago, that's why I said we Memphis proud.
Oh, Memphis.
But I love my Memphis. That's a whole nother story. But the thing that gets me with Planned Parenthood, a lot of people back in the day, don't go there. That's that. I'm like, wait a minute, we ain't learning this from home. And these people are trying to teach us and tell us and share with us. Because, I mean, they was throwing condoms out in the 80s and the 90s. Protect yourself. Protect yourself. And it's like, it was sort of at a point, ladies, that you couldn't imagine someone being pregnant with all the stuff that they was giving you. Like in our mother era and our grandparents, I could see, people having 9 kids, 10 kids, because they didn't have that protection. But it's like, utilize what's here before it's taken away from you. And that goes back to the abortion thing. It has been taken away from us to make our fundamental right to decide to do what we want to do with our body.
Well, let me say this. I'm probably gonna be devil's advocate for it right now. And,
Come on.
I mean, I'm looking at some, and
Oh,
I didn't realize that Planned Parenthood started in 1960.
16.
mhm.
1916, yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, if I'm wrong, help me, but there had to been a time where Planned Parenthood wasn't even offered in black communities.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
you know, and so
But what people
it's
don't know about that is Black women begged Planned
yeah,
Parenthood to help us, especially during the Great Migration, right? When we were in New York and Chicago and these different, northern cities still having babies like we were on the plantation, right? Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act like Margaret Sanger wasn't a real person. I'm not going to act like she did not align herself with the eugenicist community to raise money to help to build Planned Parenthood. I think something a lot of people also do not know about Planned Parenthood is that they didn't start off as an abortion clinic. They started off as a birth control clinic,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? So,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So, it is not to say that I wouldn't, I have my own personal kind of thoughts about wanting to see my Planned Parenthood colleagues show up a bit differently and go harder in the paint around sexual health education and access to contraception and things, and basically working themselves out of business too, right? But I will also, but yeah, Planned Parenthood is over 100 years old, and no,
Mhm.
it wasn't always accessible to Black people,
because
right?
they
Yeah.
wasn't
But Black
they wasn't
women, that's
yeah
the
they
part
wasn't
that people
concerned
always
about
kind
you.
of miss in the sauce,
Yeah,
that Black women was like, help me,
Yeah.
because,
all right. So
I'm
Or
trying
do
not to
you
have
see
9 babies.
me?
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
9 babies in New York, in Harlem, doesn't work the same way it works in Alabama. You
so
know, all those children was to help the family, right? That, especially on the other side of the Emancipation Proclamation, on the other side of slavery, and we had sharecropping and I come from, that's one thing about being down here in Memphis that's, really a beautiful thing to me, because my people are from Olive Branch, Mississippi on my mother's side. So I'm very close to, right, the beginnings of, our of Black progress in my family, in this living in this area, right? And so I count it an honor to do this type of work in an area where, potentially my great grandmother didn't know enough about her own body,
yeah,
or my great aunties and my granny didn't know about their bodies, or my uncles, all my great uncles who were making babies. Let's just be clear, helping to make those children, right?
yeah,
So yeah, but you're right. There was a time when it was not accessible.
right. I mean, because they wasn't concerned about the African American woman at that time. This
Yeah,
was something was done for that. Even like women's rights. Women's rights was basically for white women. They didn't
exactly.
want black women to be a part of it, even though there was a black group that was involved in rights for women and black women. They did not want them to be a part of it. But here's my devil's advocate part. We talk about this, you know, productive, reproductive justice, body autonomy, and things of that nature, and Roe versus Wade. And a lot of times when you see about, you know, a subject matter about this, it's typically it involves a white woman's struggle. Why
Mm.
is this why is this so important to the black woman on her side to make some kind of equality or important? Why is it just shouldn't it just be reproductive justice for all? Why is it so important that black women receive this reproductive justice?
I think it's super important because we have historically not been in control of our own bodies in this country. I think
Mhm.
it's imperative that there is not just you know policy action that allows us to be able to make decisions about our bodies and ourselves, but that it is a kind of social understanding that we are socially, aware that the injustices of what Black women are navigating in this country. We still don't have pay equity, right? We still are making, 68 cents to a white man's dollar, right? Which means I got to work 20 extra years to make what a white man would make by the time he's 65. Right. So like that being said, you know, the way that we talk about this issue in the reproductive justice world is abortion access is an economic justice issue. Abortion access is a racial justice issue.
Mhm.
It is a gender justice issue. It's an environmental justice issue. It's human rights. It controls every aspect because of, and then, right, kind of, not just not just because we are Black women, but we are Black women in a country where even, within our own communities, we are not necessarily honored and celebrated. We are not protected, right? So we've got to be able to talk about, and okay, so then let's flip it around the kind of power side of this. And yet Black women do everything. This whole country was built off our womb, right? So this is an issue, this is an American issue for Black women, right? Because our bodies continue to help to fuel the labor source of this country. Our bodies created the people who built the White House. Our First Lady Michelle Obama said to live in a house that slaves built. Them slaves came out of Black women's bodies.
Right. Yep.
You see what I'm saying? And I think that one of the things that is so egregious is that for anybody to get on a bandwagon, when you say that you won't trust me to make the best decision for myself, you're basically saying, you're basically telling your mama, I don't trust you.
Right.
Grandmother, I don't trust you. Right? That you can come from my body and turn around and control my body is not even like, what is that? That's not even natural order. Like, what is that? That we have, I think it's super important too, that we be very mindful about the Black woman's role in the African diaspora, in the African village. What is the African-centered understanding of this thing? Right? It was not until we adopted a colonialist, a European way of thinking that I no longer had your honor. Right? That my decision making was questioned in this way. If Black women are having abortions, we are trying to have some level of critical thinking. Like I said, the only reason that I went to the abortion clinic when I went was because I did not want to raise a child by myself. Not because I didn't want to be a mom, because I did not want to bring a child into suffering. And suffering is more than whether or not I can put a roof over that child's head. Suffering also looks like if I know that there's not going to be another individual who helped me make you, right, being in your life, I'm trying to stop your heartbreak. Right. So I think that there's just something there that we really need to interrogate within the Black community. Just about kind of how our role, how we have kind of conflated some things here. And we have a view around some of these issues, right? That's why it's not a rights issue for me as much as it is a justice issue for me, as much as it is a cultural issue for me. We're until we can figure out how to unbreak our broken community, we've got to be able to have some options in place, period.
Sharice, I got a question for you first. We got to talk about the church.
Come on.
Glenda, you have anything you want to add to that?
No, she's telling the truth. It's we have become so just so
Colonialized.
Yeah, I couldn't say the word, that oftentimes we're forgetting from whence we came.
Yes.
I mean, that's just from whence we came. We were kings and queens in Africa, but here we're diminished to whatever. And we as a people, many of us have bought into it, which is unfortunate. We have bought into the fact that that we can be governed and we need to be like this. And even with like she said, economics, if you bring a child in this world and you're not married, and you're doing it all by yourself, there's the economics. Then that child, be it male or female, needs that other partner's. This woman does not have that male presence in that child's life. Then they don't have the same economic resources for that child. And education is such a plethora of things that happen. And then now you criminalize an act that should be that woman's choice. And I think that that's my biggest issue with them, doing away with. You've criminalized it. You're making it like, oh my goodness, a woman have a choice over her body, and I'm gonna tattle on everybody that comes into play with her. It's crazy.
Well, we could talk about the segregation of the black family being abortion within itself. That's a whole nother conversation we could have where they've been doing that. Sharice, I want to talk a little about the church because I know you go around to churches and talking to them now, which is a great thing. Talk about some of the drawbacks that you had with initially getting involved in this and how that has changed throughout the time period of you've been working with Sister Reach. I'm sorry.
So it's been a long road, right? I mean, I think we all know how church works, especially when we're talking about mostly male pastors, what it looks like for folks to come from the outside to come into our churches to teach anything. And we've taken this type of education into all types of churches, Baptist churches, Church of God in Christ churches, Church of God, non-denominational. We've taken this information because the information is the same. It's public health information. What we've done, we created a program very specific for how we work with the church. We call it Vacation Body School. And, we always have allowed parents to be a part of those conversations. Were okay with that, but we've done this with singles ministries. We've talked to our elders. We've taught sex education at the nursing home, right? Because just because you can't physically create and or bring a baby in, through your body does not mean you cannot contract HIV or syphilis or gonorrhea or chlamydia. And so, we have intentionally worked with churches. One of the reasons that we began working with churches was because of the abstinence laws that were not allowing us to teach in the school system. There were schools that were calling us left and right. And I initially started my work in Chicago, and then I moved down to Memphis because my mom was ill. But one of the things I did before I left was wrote a sexual health education curriculum for Chicago public schools that got approved. I wasn't able to be there to help see it be implemented. But now coming back to Chicago and working in this field again, and knowing that comprehensive sex education is something that is legal and accessible, but not implemented still in the Chicago public school system is a problem.
It is not.
Right? And what I've learned is that even the sex education that a lot of our young people are getting is like 6 hours of instructional time for the whole year. Nobody can learn and retain and give that back to you with just 6 hours. You know what I'm saying? So the church was a place that we could reach a mass number of young people and their parents and whoever else wanted to learn without all of the bureaucracy.
But I know
if we could get on the same page with the pastor, and we can get on the same page with the youth minister, then we were able to have access. I'm sorry, what'd you say, brother?
I know that there had to be a heavy drawback on that. You've got especially some of those old school pastors.
Oh yeah.
I know it had to be a lot of drawback. Again, this is education, people. This is education. It's not telling you what to do. It's educating you on what's out there for you to do.
But I would think that the judgment comes into play where people have wrapped already. If you're talking anything, even though you're educating, you're talking about that taboo word. You're talking about sex. Yeah. And that's how they look at it. They don't look at it as a fact of, we're all sexual beings. We need to know how we exist, how different things happen. All they look at is, and in some churches or some people look at sex as a taboo, even
especially
in 2024. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll frown.
And we want to jump to those hot topics like abortion and LGBT rights without having a conversation about the initial part, sex. But my Bible tells me that we perish for a lack of knowledge.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So if we're not going to talk about the lack of knowledge, if we're not going to talk about the perish means to die.
Right.
Mhm.
We die for a lack of knowledge. And
Yeah.
so all we have attempted to do was to bring that knowledge into a place that people feel mostly safe. And I'm gonna say mostly because everybody don't feel safe in church, okay? But
Mhm.
but where people have felt a place of safety, a place where you could bring your family, a place where you could learn together. The church has always been played a pivotal role in the Black community. And let's be clear, once upon a time, this was not even a topic. This did not become a topic in the church until the after Brown versus Board of Education. See, that's the other part. See, we don't have enough history. We don't have enough information. See, because nobody was even caring about abortion once upon a time. Because I wondered, I was like, how is it that my grandmothers are so quote unquote progressive? How were they? Because this wasn't a taboo issue back in the day. It only became a taboo issue when we got socialized that it was a bad thing.
Mhm. Integration.
And right, because when we won with Brown versus Board of Education, and white folks had to figure out another way to mobile, because all this is about politics. That's why I keep going back to this. All of a sudden, you had the white evangelical Christian right movement, right? What is this other thing that we can organize around that we can get our people to the polls? And abortion was the thing that they chose. There was a time they did not even care. Matter of fact, they were supportive of Black and brown babies being aborted because they didn't want us to be, period. Right? Yeah. So then I think that it is important for us to think about how we have historically adopted somebody else's rhetoric and propaganda as our truth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like a whole bunch of this stuff wasn't an issue once upon a time. You know, so I think that part is really important. So that's why, we go into churches and we talk, and we share. I mean, I have sat down and I have shown ministers everything that we're going to talk about. We do the same thing we do in school. A parent can opt in or out. We have done separate conversations with children and parents or guardians. We have tried to be as creative as we can. Our work was recognized in Old Magazine in 2018 for our Vacation Body School program. Because it has to happen. We've got to be able to reach our people. And if we got to come to the church to do it, I don't have a problem with doing that at all. Yeah. Right. So that's definitely one of the things. And like I said, we teach in menstruation and menopause. It makes me no different.
I'll say VBS. I just love that. Vacation Body School. Because we grew up with Vacation Bible School in church. But that VBS, Vacation Body School, and you could get all that knowledge. Because see, back, like I said, 70, 79 to 82, we had sex education in school. I did not know they took it out of school. It's like,
they a little bit.
It's not in the little bit they give it to the if they do it at all in Chicago public schools, the gym teacher will teach it.
Yes.
Gym teacher.
Yes. Yes.
And the gym teacher is not going to do a good job. One of the schools that I worked at, the principal, it was primarily Hispanic population. I worked in the middle school, and the principal was adamant about having sex education in his school, 5th through 8th grade, because although he was a white man, he knew this population, the girls got pregnant early. And he wanted them to be educated, and they had a vendor come out, and every week they had sex education for a whole school year. Now but our population, if you bring it into our schools, they'll say, well, the parents will say, no, I want to be able to teach my kid this. I want to be able to teach, but then they're not teaching them.
Because they don't know. That's the other issue here for me, is that it's one thing to try to withhold information from a child because you want them to preserve their purity or whatever. But what I have learned by doing this work for 20 years is that the parents don't know. My mama didn't know. When my period came, she was like, look, this is how you use this maxi pad and you can become pregnant and you bet not. I mean,
Yep.
that was
I
it.
heard
That
that.
was it.
I
So
heard that too.
when do we learn with a scare tactic? We don't learn with a scare tactic, right? And that still negates the very important puberty.
Yep.
Talk about puberty. We got to talk about the time of the month that a person becomes horny is when you are actually ovulating. That's why. Because your body is trying to prepare itself to become pregnant. Right? So until we just regular public health information. That's all it is. That's all it is.
Our gym teacher that taught us about
Young
sex
little boys
education.
about wet dreams. We don't want to talk about any of those things. We want to shame them.
Yeah.
But we don't want to talk about masturbation. We don't want to talk about the very important things we got to talk about. And it's not stopping our kids from having sex.
Vanessa, I'm gonna let you say something if you can actually be in the camera and us not seeing your ironing board.
Sorry, I got packed for this conference.
Okay, so what was you saying? I mean, because now we
I
got
was saying,
reproductive rights and iron.
Oh no, yeah, we had do you remember this black gym teacher we had at Jefferson named Mr. Buckhalter? He made if you remember how he sounded like Mr. T when he spoke.
Okay.
He's kind of built like him. So can you imagine somebody that kind of reminds you of Mr. T? Mr. T came later, spoke like Mr. T, and he's giving you sex education.
Not to mention he doesn't have the knowledge. That's the key
Right.
thing.
Right.
Know.
He just showed us pictures of penises and vaginas and said, that if a man puts his penis at a vagina, she can get pregnant and stuff, and you guys too young. It was like short, simplified, void of, really information that was, worthwhile. It was just flat, straight stuff about sex and stuff. Nothing about ovulation, nothing about cycles, nothing about, protection. It was just straight sex. And with that type of Mr. T voice, your whole mindset was listen to this voice make these comments about sexual parts of the body. So the only thing to us, it was comedy to us. So it just went in one ear and out the other.
So I'm gonna laugh about something because in 10 years we haven't really had any of these conversations, but in the last 3 weeks we didn't heard the word penis 2 times on our show. So I'm quite sure some of those Christians like, oh my God, they're talking about that. I mean, yes, we're talking about that. We are definitely talking about that. We don't have but about maybe a few more minutes left here, and I appreciate you all being on the show with us. I'm gonna start off with Mrs. Ironboard, and then I'm going to Glenda, then I'm gonna let Sharice finish this up. Just give me a quick soliloquy on how do we protect the autonomy of our body, of women's bodies, my body, my choice.
One, you have to make sure that we need to start with our young kids, especially our young girls, because it seems to me that there's been a huge break in knowledge and education with our kids, especially our young girls. We need to start with them and educate them on their mind and their body, and the fact that their body is a temple. Their mind is a working object that can provide them with so much knowledge. They can learn so many things. It's a sponge, it's a computer, it's all types of things and stuff. We need to teach them how to protect both of these things because they're our future. And right now, the little girls we have out there, they're just out there loose wild with nothing and nobody to steer them. It's almost like somebody's purposely steering them away from the direction we've been working with them with. That's just for the young girls. And you got to start with the girls that's in high school and the ones that's in college that's out there, drinking, drugging, running around these different guys. We have to start with our young people and work our way either from the youngest to the oldest or the oldest to the youngest and stuff to bring them back to the real world, to knowledge, to understanding, to show them how much they're worth, how much their body is worth, how much their mind is worth. We have to work with our kids and stuff because at the rate they're going, we may have a lot of babies, but they're going to be stupid. They're going to be mindless. They're going to be concerned about material things. And the level of education that we have been able to reach in all these years will be erased, because there's so many kids out here now that are in school and they are not learning anything at all whatsoever. So we need to start with our youth to keep our livelihood, keep our lifeline going.
Linda?
Oh, it's so much, and it's such a it's not an easy lift. I work with K through 2 children, and I see what their priorities are, and how they're coming to school, and the things that they say and repeat, and they know, and it's a lot of misinformation. And I agree with what Vanessa said, is that we have to educate, but I also too, around the whole topic of reproductive rights, in addition to educating the children, we have to educate their parents. Their parents, if a parent can, there's a first grader. The little girl's in first grade, she can't write her name, but she can tell you she can twerk, and her mother taught her that. If her mother can teach her how to twerk, she can also teach her about her body and how to use it properly, how to for it to be a temple, around reproductive rights, and around I'm so pro-choice. I'm so thankful. My mother, one day we were talking to something, and they were talking about pro-choice and pro-life and this, that, and other. And my mother was in early stages of dementia, but she just was adamant. Every woman should be pro-choice. They should be. So it's such a complicated subject, but we've got to do better as a society. And as long as we criminalize women having control over their bodies, we're going to be in a bad way, because that's what they've done. They've criminalized it. They've made it to be a negative. They've made it you to reproduce or have choice of your body. Oh, and if you make a choice that's contrary to what the white man wants, then you're terrible. So
I'm going to just say this before I'm going to turn it over to my sister to give some of her final truth on this, that this is historical for me, because for the first time in the 10 years that I've done this show, I probably only spoke about 10% of the time. So that is historical, that I'm not actually doing that much talking. But it wasn't meant for me to do the talking. This show has always been about, educating people about the choices and about, God and God's will about taboo topics that we need to discuss. So I'm going to ask my sister to help me with the end of this, of what do we need to do to protect the body autonomy for women going forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wrote down some notes while my sisters were speaking, just so that I could kind of be precise. The first thing I wrote was for us to be honest about what it is that we don't know, where it concerns our bodies and our sexual health, and to get that knowledge, to seek after that knowledge by any means necessary, right? And for me, that looks like fighting on that local and state level, at the school board level, first of all, because I agree with you, Belinda, our young people need this education. Vanessa as well, she said it too. But we have to make sure that the law gets translated from what's happening in Springfield all the way down to what's going on in Chicago. If we know that we got sex education and there is no hindrance, then we got to make sure that our taxpayer dollars are paying for the teachers who are equipped to teach that, and or they can partner with organizations like ours to come in and teach that information. In that same breath, I think we're gonna have to be honest adults about what we also do not know about our bodies, and not feel any shame, right? We have done, we need to bring it back actually. We've done an adult sexual health online conversation, right? Where people didn't have to feel like they were kind of being outed. You don't have to come on camera. We teaching you the same thing we teach your kids, because it's the same information. And so I want adults to also be honest about what it is that we don't know. I don't care if you're 35, 45. The first abortion that I had, I was in my 30s, right? So in my 30s, I didn't understand my body. Let's be clear, okay? I turned 50 this year, which means I haven't even had this knowledge for 2 decades. So I think that it's important for us to just be real about what we don't know. It's okay. It's no shame. Just because you're adult, it doesn't make all of a sudden by osmosis that you know all of these things. The same way, just because you are grown, don't mean you know how to balance a checkbook or save money, right? Or buy a house, or all of the things that folks expect you to just be able to do because you're grown. And that also means you don't necessarily know about your body. So get the education. The third thing, I think it's important for us this is a presidential election coming up. This is one of the most, if not the most important presidential election that we will have in our lifetime.
Yes.
We
Yes.
cannot afford to stay at the house. If you gotta send it in by absentee, if you gotta pick somebody up and take them to the polls, it's not even just about, we learned that we were asleep during the Obama administration. We were so excited about Obama that we didn't show up on the local and the state level elections. And this is how so many seats got taken, right? Where we can't even influence what's happening at the presidential level because of what's happening at the local and state level. So it's important that you know who your mayor, your DA, the judges, right? So it's important for us to be educated and vote on every level. And this presidential election, we cannot afford to stay at the crib. We got to go outside. We got to go vote. We have to vote this time, right? And the next thing I said was because I don't expect folks to know, I didn't know, okay, about these things. I learned after it was an issue, after I had already been impacted. I learned about what I needed to know. I had to get with organizations, had to get with somebody who knew how to teach me. So reach out to organizations, reach out to Sister Reach. We're here for you, right? Even if I'm in Tennessee, the same way we on this Zoom having this important conversation is the same way I can teach you about your body over the Zoom. I don't have to physically be in Chicago. I'm in Chicago often. However, we can teach you. There's organizations that are right there in the city that will teach you about your body. So don't feel any kind of way. What I have heard from most of the parents that I've spoken with over this last year or so is that they want information and education for their young people. We're happy to do that as well. So sisterreach.org, you can find us. We're right, and you can just reach out and we got you. But we're not the only ones, and we're happy to share other resources and places that you can go. And last but not least, what we said in response to that billboard campaign in 2010 that I must say here, trust Black women. Trust us to make the best decision for ourselves and our families and our bodies as it pertains to our reproductive and sexual health, as it pertains to our bodily autonomy. Stop allowing the rhetoric and the propaganda to make you feel like you can't trust us to make good decisions about ourselves. And if you don't like the decisions, then I would invite you into helping to make sure that we all have the right equipment and tools to be able to make decisions that we all can live with, right? That will forward our communities, that will forward our families, that will help us make healthy and sound choices. It's imperative. It is life and death at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to stop us for a second because we're about to get ready to go off the air. I'm so happy my sister took off her camera. That's what I was looking at. Like, I don't want to see you ironing anymore. I'm like, this is a very serious topic. We don't want to be.
I'm listening to it, everything that's being said. I'm sorry, but I have to.
The YouTube. We're on YouTube and
I'm
Facebook.
sorry.
And
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I mean, that's what sisters do to you sometimes.
With payback for all the stuff you did to me coming up.
All right. Hey, we got to get out of here. I'm going to let Kenny end the show. We hope you all enjoyed the information we was talking about My Body, My Choice. Ladies, I want you all to stay on Facebook with me for 1 second before we get off. But I just want to say, everybody, thank you very much for listening to this panel discussion. And we'll see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. See you, Soar Radio. We love you. All right, so we're off there. Hey, I want to appreciate everybody that's coming on here to talk to us. Glenda, Ironboard, Vanessa, thank you very much for being on the show with me. My baby, my girl, my boo, my sister in Christ. Like I said, I love you. I love everything you stand up for. We definitely
I do too.
we got to
Yeah.
have you come back on the show.
Happy to. Happy
One,
to.
one powerful sister that
Yes, yes.
I said to her, God has brought me to you, and we got to stay connected. And so I appreciate
Yes,
you.
sir. I'm down.
Before we get off again, just tell people just quickly about how they can reach you at Sister Reach.
Just go www.sisterreach.org, and it will route you to our website. You can go right on there to get in touch with us, and you can leave a message or email, and we're happy to support you in the best way that we can, whether that be in person or whether that be virtually. We can be as flexible as you need us to be to do what it is that you need us to do, whether or not we're talking about churches or, we do a lot of work with sororities and fraternities. I mean, we do work at the food stamp office, right? We're trying to make sure that wherever people need this information, we can bring it and take it. So feel free to reach out to us there. You can also find me on CherissScott.com, CherissScott. That's another way that you can reach me. But I think just for the specific sake of this, is definitely sisterreach.org.
Hey, and
Excellent.
I love you for standing in the gap. I really appreciate that. So
Indeed.
we'll be definitely talking again with each other. I'm sure I'll be talking to my sister again somehow. Doing something. And Glenda, thank you very much for being on the show.
No
Thank you
problem.
As well.
Thank you so
And
much
so-
for having me.
Of
All right.
course,
Thank you so
man.
much.
We'll talk to you all soon. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, Sister McCain, I'll see y'all later on.
All right.
Coming after you, Sharice.
Yes, ma'am, I'm down. I'm here for you all.
Okay, I'm coming after you.
Yeah, I knew she was gonna say that because she does
That's
this.
all.